Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar session, Looking Back and Looking Forward, a conversation on Japan and Canada's aging societies. We are delighted that so many of you could join us today. This webinar is hosted by the Consul General of Japan in Toronto and the Center for the Study of Global Japan at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. I would like to thank the organizing team, Mr. Takashi Miyata and Rui Umezawa at the Japanese Consul General's Office in Toronto, Mio Otsuka at the Center for the Study of Global Japan, and Adam Bell and Daria Damberts at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy for their hard work in putting this webinar together. My name is Ito Peng, and I am a professor of sociology and public policy at the Department of Sociology and the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. I am delighted to serve as the moderator of this exciting webinar. I would like to begin this webinar by first making a land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people across Turtle Island, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Now, I would like to call on the Consul General of Japan in Toronto, Mr. Takuya Sasayama, and the director of the Center for the Study of Global Japan at the University of Toronto, Professor Philip Lipsey, to say a few words of greetings. Consul General.
Thank you. Good evening, konnichiwa, and ohayo gozaimasu. I started work in North America some 6 years ago. One of the most things struck me was in North America, there is no retirement age. Whereas we have in Japan 60 or 63 or 65, we have so-called the retirement age. So we take it for granted that if you become a certain age, you will think about what you're going to do after the company or society you joined when you was young. For example, in Canada, what struck me again is one of the famous mayor in Toronto, the Mississauga mayor, Hazel McCarrion. She turned just 100 and she's still active and giving very vibrant advice for Japanese companies and people like myself. So there's in Japan, it's called that 100 years of your life something, but here in Canada, it's already working. So there's so many things to discover in North America. Today, the theme is aging society. Japan and Canada is a group of G7 which share the value and the way of thinking. But the social problem we share too. So today's topic is one of the typical questions that both countries faces. And of course, we are still in the middle of the pandemic. And here in Canada or back in Japan, the long-term care facilities or lodging home in Japan is a big question. So today's question is kind of clear and present danger. I must say my grandmother-in-law turns 105. And she's in care facility in Tokyo. So today's theme is very familiar with me, and I hope those who listen to this webinar will make this knowledge into practice, maybe right after this webinar. Thank you.
So thank you. I'll keep my remarks brief so we can move quickly to substantive discussion. It was almost exactly a year ago that our center hosted our last in-person event before the pandemic shutdown, and it was a symposium on innovations in advancing gender equality to mark International Women's Day 2020. So I think it's been a very long year for all of us. But I'm thankful to our many colleagues and friends who have continued to turn out to our online events and who have sustained this wonderful intellectual community and engagement with issues in contemporary Japan. I think it's very fitting that we mark International Women's Day in 2021 with such a distinguished panel of women who are among the top academic experts on the topic of today's panel from the fields of gerontology, political science, and sociology. It's not intentional that the panel is all women. They are simply the best among the world's leading experts on the topic. I always teach my students that it is critical to learn about Japan because the country has been at the forefront of so many tumultuous changes that eventually affect many other societies across the world. These range from an asset price bubble and the subsequent deflationary financial crisis to responding to the geopolitical and economic rise of China. But demographic transition and aging is very much a prominent and important example of just such a change in which Japan is a step ahead of other developed societies. And it's important, I think, to consider what kind of lessons can we learn from Japan's experiences and what kind of lessons can we offer to Japan as the country manages these difficult challenges related to aging. So I look forward very much to listening and learning from my esteemed colleagues this evening or morning if you're in Japan. And I very much look forward to seeing all of you at our upcoming events. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Consul General Sasakawa and Professor Lipsey. As the Consul General Sasayama and Professor Lipsey mentioned, population aging is now an important social and policy issue, not only in Japan, but also in many countries, including Canada. Whereas the Japanese government and people have been working to develop various policies and programs to address their aging society over the last several decades, in Canada too, we have become much more aware of our aging population over the last 10 years. Today, people over the age of 65 make up about 18% of Canada's total population. According to the most recent demographic projection, this population will reach about 21.4% to 29.5% by year 2068. It is therefore important that we talk about the implications of aging society. What does it mean in terms of social and physical infrastructures and policies? How do we prepare for a healthy aging society? We have today 3 experts to discuss aging societies in Japan and Canada. This webinar will be organized as follows. First, Professor Akiyama will give about 40 minutes presentation on Japan's aging society and a model for redesigning communities for aged society. This will be followed by about 20 minutes of discussions from the 2 panel discussants, Professors Margarita Estevez-Abe and Michelle Silver. After the discussions, we will have about 20 minutes of Q&A session and we'll take your questions. I would like to ask you to please send your questions in Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom link. I will try to organize and read as many of your questions as I can during the Q&A sessions. For your information, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording of this webinar will be made available through the YouTube at a later date. Now, let me introduce you the presenter and the discussants. Professor Akiyama is a gerontologist and a professor emeritus at the University of Tokyo. She is also the former vice president of Science Council of Japan. Professor Akiyama is widely recognized as an expert on issues of global aging. She is known for her long-running research on the elderly in Japan, tracking aging patterns of approximately 6,000 Japanese elderly people over 30 years. She is also the initiator of social experiment projects aimed to redesign communities to meet the needs of the highly aged society, and more recently of Kamakura Living Lab, a platform for open innovation co-created by industry, government, and academia. Professor Akiyama received a PhD in psychology from University of Illinois, United States. Professor Margarita Estevez-Abe is an associate professor of political science at Maxwell School of Public Policy, Public Affairs and Citizenship at Syracuse University. She has also served as the first chair of public policy at Collegio Carlo Alberto in Turin, Italy. She specializes on comparative political economy of advanced industrial societies. She has written on the varieties of capitalism, exploring the intersection of welfare states, electoral systems, and the models of capitalism. She is the author of the award-winning book on welfare capitalism in post-war Japan, published by Cambridge University Press, and the editor of Outsourcing the Domestic and Care Work, which is a special issue on the Social Politics Journal, and Beyond Familiarism, which is also another special issue on the Journal of European Social Policy. She's currently working on a new book manuscript on politics of demographic aging in Germany, Italy, and Japan. And finally, last but not the least, Professor Michelle Silver is an associate professor of gerontology at the University of Toronto, where she holds appointments in the Department of Health and Society, Sociology, and Public Health. Her book, Retirement and Its Discontent, was published in 2018 by Columbia University Press. Her work has been featured in Forbes, the Time Literary Supplement, Zoomer, Next Avenue, the Globe and Mail, Global News, and other popular media sources. She received her BA, BS, and MPP from the University of California, Berkeley, and a PhD from the University of Chicago. She is currently the chair of the Department of Health and Society at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. Now, I would like to ask Professor Akiyama to give her talk, Redesigning Communities for Aged Society, Kawashima Model, Japan. Professor Akiyama.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Professor Ito. Let me share the screen. Let me see. Can you see the slides? Okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Consulants General Sasayama and Professor Lipsy and Professor Ito mentioned aging population is a global phenomenon. And we face various problems at national level, community level, and individual level. It is my great pleasure to have this opportunity to share our ideas and social experiment in redesigning communities for the age society. And I like to thank the organizer to prepare this forum at a very difficult time in the world. Okay, let me see. Oh, so this is my title page. Okay. I will start with a brief description of the background. Population aging is a global phenomenon, and Japan is one of the front runners of the rapidly aging societies. The average life expectancy of Japanese women is now 87 years and 81 years for men. And the current total fertility rate is 1.43. So as a result, 28%, actually 28.9. So I mean, almost 29 or almost 30. I mean, of the Japanese population. So 1 of 4 or 1 of 3, persons in Japan is age 65 and older. The total population started to decline at 2010. As you see, the working age population has been steadily decreasing, but the population age 65 and older, particularly age 75 and older, is increasing. This slide shows the old age dependency ratios. In 1965, 50 years ago, there were 9.1 persons to support one older person. Now the ratio is 1 to 2.4. And we're expecting the ratio will become almost 1 to 1 in 2050. Obviously, we will not be able to sustain the social security system and the national economy as well. Social welfare spending for pension, healthcare, and long-term care has been steadily increasing. Although this is an important issue, I will not focus on macroeconomic issue today. In year 2030, 9 years from now, it is predicted, conservatively, 20% of the population age 65 and older are demented, and 45% will be living alone. This is a new phenomenon in Japan and in Asia in general. We have been conducting a panel survey following about 6,000 Japanese age 60 and older, basically every 3 years since 1987, so it's over 30 years, looking at changes in major domains of their lives with increasing age, health, economic status, and social relations. So it's about 6,000 Japanese, and this is so this is a face-to-face interview in every 3 years, supported by the government. Okay, and now we collected 9 waves of data, and this year, actually, we are planning to collect data last year, but we couldn't, so we're going to collect 10th wave of data this year. Using ADL and IADL, probably you know, activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living. Okay, those are the those limitations. We looked at changes in the independent living with increasing age. It is functional independence, a key concept of WHO definition of healthy aging. This is the scoring guideline. We gave score 3 to people who have no ADL and IADL limitations, and we gave score 2 to those with no ADL limitations but need assistance for IDL. Score 1 is for those who need assistance for both ADL and IADL, and 0 are dead. Using a latent class analysis model, we found 3 typical patterns of health change among men. The point I want to make in this graph is a red line. 70% of men stayed functionally independent until mid-70s, and then their health gradually declined and required some assistance. This is a similar graph for women. 70% of men and almost 90% of women, altogether 80% of Japanese older persons start losing physical independence in mid-70s. The population age 75 and older is rapidly increasing and double in the next 10 years. So this trajectory poses a serious problem. In 1980s and 90s, computer technology rapidly advanced. It was an exciting time in the field of survey research. The advancement of computer technology made it possible to analyze large and complicated data. I was at the University of Michigan and engaged in a number of cross-national surveys and panel surveys on a large scale. Our purpose was to understand changes associated with individual aging and population aging, and identify issues we need to address. In 1997, I returned to Japan. At that time, the Japanese population was rapidly aging, or even now. And what I felt that time was, we already know what issues are. What we need now are solutions and actions. In my view, one viable approach from the academic community was action research. The purpose of action research is to solve a particular problem and to produce guidelines for best practices. It is a participatory research in collaboration with multi-stakeholders, such as government, industry, various organizations such as NPOs, Physicians Association, and certainly citizens. It takes a spiral of steps. Each step is composed of a PDCA cycle that is planning, action, and fact-finding about the result with action. University can offer a platform for action research, the collaboration of multi-stakeholders who jointly seek solutions to a particular issue. It will turn out to be a platform for open innovations. Action research is a promising research method, but still at the formative stage. We need to work on further developing action research as rigorous scientific research methods. Among various issues in aging society, we identified 3 priority issues we take actions. The first, let me see. First, we need to make individual and collective efforts to shift the red line. So this point, the red line, this starts declining. We need to shift this point toward this way. Okay. So in other words, we need to increase years of life without disability. And second, even if we could add several years of life without disabilities, the majority of people will still become to require some level of assistance. So many people kind of wish to live in this way. So this is pimping colori. It's just we're active and until just before die. Okay, and so therefore we need to create on. So this is only 10% of the people achieve this kind of the way of life. So we need to create an environment where these people stay safe. These people stay safe and comfortable and connected. The third, we need the third, we need a strategy for forming and maintaining human bonds. To address these issues, Institute of Gerontology at the University of Tokyo launched a social experiment in a community. The existing infrastructure of communities was built when the population was much younger. And we need to redesign both hard and soft infrastructure of communities. We are trying to redesign communities for meeting the needs of the highly aged society. We want to build communities where people could live for 100 years, staying healthy, active, connected, and live with a sense of security. So this is not a retirement community. It is an ordinary community for people of all ages. As this is a social experiment, we evaluate the effects of our interventions at the individual, as you see here, at individual level, community level, and costs. And we make policy recommendations based on the scientific evidence. So this is, overview of our project, or the several, the projects going on at the same time. And it requires considerable scientific and social innovations. So these are major projects we're working on now. We have two experimental sites, one in the metropolitan area, 30 kilometers away from Tokyo, and the other in rural area. We chose two quite ordinary communities so that they can be helpful for other communities in redesigning their communities. The following slides illustrate major projects we are now working on in Kashiwa, the urban community. The first project is workplaces for the second life. We live longer and we work longer. As you might remember, this is the title of OECD report published in 2005. We are not only live longer, but also live healthier. This slide compares the usual walking speed of people in the same age groups from 1992 to 2017. As you see, the men and women in all age groups significantly improved in walking speed. The changes are really amazing. 4 years ago, Japanese Association of Geriatrics and Gerontology made an official pronouncement to raise the definition of old age from 65 to 75 years old. Actually, now in Japan, people in 60s, they don't consider themselves as the seniors. 3 years ago, we conducted a survey asking about 5,000 people aged 50 to 64, so kind of pre-senior, what they want to do after age 65. Number one, over half of the respondents mentioned they want to work full-time or part-time. Number two was learning, kind of polishing themselves. The Japanese seniors are willing to work. According to the national survey by the Cabinet Office, 70% of people aged 60 and older wish to work until 70 years old. Almost 40% said they wish to work as long as they are capable to work. This is a graph in the report published by Ministry of Health and Welfare. It shows the labor participation rate of seniors age 65 and older, and their medical, the medical care expenditure by prefecture, like province, have moderate correlation. Expansion of job opportunities for seniors is essential to ensure sustainability of the society, to maintain and enhance the labor force, social security, finance, and economic development. The prediction of labor demand as supply in 2030 looks bleak. We lose 8.45 million workers in next 10 years. Seniors need to be producers, the workers. Social benefits, social security benefits exceeds 100 trillion Japanese yen. Seniors need to be taxpayers and promote health and contain medical costs by working. The expansion of senior market is also important. Seniors will be active consumers. So this is an important issue at the societal level. And we are obviously a number of macro policy issues to address. So people wish to work even after age 65, and work is good for health. So we started a project called Workplaces for the Second Life. Kashiwa City is a typical bed town of Tokyo. A huge number of baby boomers who commuted to work in Tokyo retired and came back to this community. We are creating age-friendly workplaces and flexible scheme of employment suitable for the second life. So far, we created 9 workplaces in workplaces in 9 fields probably, and three in the agriculture, 2 workplaces are food related, and the others are in the field of education and personal care. Excuse me. All workplaces are operated by business owners in the private sectors. The wage varies depending on the nature of work, but the minimum wage is guaranteed for all jobs. All the persons are diverse in terms of physical abilities, free time, economic situation, and lifestyle. So using work sharing, we develop a flexible employment scheme for both employers and senior workers. So all the persons decide when and how long they work. These are senior workers at work. It is essential for senior workers to learn the basic ICT skills for participating in a job sharing group. We evaluate the effects of working after retirement age at individual level and the community level. These are some of the indicators. Yeah, we have indicators, a smile. I think, the smile it's very important, kind of a good indicator of health, both in physical and psychological health. So, the smile is one of our indicators. Using these devices, we assess physical abilities, cognitive abilities, and social interactions before they start working 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later. Okay, this activity tapestry. We are still, collecting data, but the preliminary analysis results show the positive effects of working. So based on the scientific data from a community experiment, we made policy recommendations to the national government, Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. Based on policy recommendations, in 2018, the legislation was passed at the national diet to institutionalize this program. So now, it is spreading, throughout the country. Seniors' labor force participation is essential for sustainability of a social security system and economy as well. We need to reform the pension system, reduce various barriers at workplaces, and also enhance seniors' employability. And also the battle with ageism is really hard, but quite important. We also test various products which provide older persons with safe and productive work environment. This is a simple power assist device for reducing the stress on the lower back in farming and nursing care, developed by Hokkaido University and the Mitsubishi Electric Company. This is the one, the devices we tested. And we are now working on a platform for job matching assisted by AI with a major employment agency, Recruit and IBM, because matching with the senior workers and the kind of jobs or tasks actually are quite different from job matching with the new graduate from the college and job. It's because the senior workers are quite diverse, so it's a matching system is quite important. For a long time, we made individual and collective efforts to extend life expectancy. When the average life expectancy approached 80 years, the focus shifted to extension of healthy life expectancy. Now we are about to see the extension of years being engaged in the society, the extension of engaged life expectancy. 2 years ago, we set up October 1st as the Day of Lifelong Active Society, where we celebrate September 15, a day of respecting senior citizens. And this is a national holiday. But now we need, not only respecting, but the Day of a Lifelong Active Society. The next project is a frailty prevention. In the highly aged society, the frailty is a dominant cause of disability. We promote the frailty prevention in the community. We try to raise awareness of physical frailty, cognitive frailty, and the social frailty. Okay. So this is a longitudinal cohort study on a large scale. Trained active seniors in green shirt participate as staff members in annual frailty checkup in the community. Preliminary analysis of the data indicates social frailty often precedes physical frailty and cognitive frailty. Therefore, social engagement is an important factor to prevent frailty. I think I'm just skipping out of details. Okay. The next project, the primary concern of older person is health and long-term care. The national government is promoting the integrated home-based care system, which provides home-based health and social care services for 24 hours. This flower pot picture illustrates the concept of system. Six components are conceived to make up the system: medical care, nursing care, and rehab and prevention. These professional services make up the plant part, in green part. Okay. The social care services supporting daily life, such as shopping, cleaning, and transportation, is the soil part. Housing constitutes the flower pot part. The last, but not the least important, is the patient's choice and preparation, the tray. This slide illustrates more concretely the concept of integrated community care system. So it's older person or patient-centered. I mean, the professional and various social care service make a team and provide, services for 24 hours. When we built the system, the first hurdle we had to clear was doctors in private practice were reluctant to be on call for 24 hours. Most of the doctors in private practice run an office which was with only one doctor, a couple of nurses, and staff members. So on call for 24 hours means he or she cannot go to a professional meeting, take a vacation, nor even enjoy a glass of wine with dinner. So we proposed doctors form a pair of primary doctor and sub-doctors in the area, but they did not like it. They are concerned their patients might switch to the sub-doctor. The current system is one doctor stationed at the local health hub is available to serve as a sub-doctor to all clinics in the area. Then they collaborate with other service providers such as care managers, visiting nurse, dentists, PTs, and home helpers. So when we started, we formed 5 working groups. The first one was physician working group, which set up workable relations among primary doctors, sub-doctor, and doctors in hospitals. The second, coordination working group coordinated healthcare and long-term care services. And the third, trial, the practice working group tested and verified and improved the system by trial runs. The fourth, the hospital working group defined discharge protocol and backup system of home-based care. And finally, a face-to-face working group where all service providers get together and enhance the partnerships. This is a training workshop for health and long-term care professionals on home-based care. We mix lectures, workshops, and the practicum at home visit the situation. 4 years ago, a combination of independent living, independent and assisted living facility was built in the central part of the community. Various service stations for home-based healthcare are located on the first floor of this building. They are the offices of doctors and dentists who make home visit and visiting nurse, PT, and home helper stations. And I think everyone does home visit. And the pharmacy delivers medicine to patients' home. All of them, deliver their service not only to the residents, but also to the residents of surrounding community. This is a picture, a doctor and nurse visiting a patient's home. My mother passed away at age 97, 2 years ago. And the pair of, doctor and nurse visited regularly. I visited her regularly, and actually in the beginning twice a month, and then in the end I think it's more often as it's healthcare is needed. She was quite happy. This small, multifunctional service center provides daycare service, short stay for respite care, mainly for caregivers, and home visit by a nurse and a home helper, and responding to the patients and their families' needs. This type of service center is very user-friendly and in great demand. The integrated community care system is a patient-centered care system, cooperating with hospitals and social care services such as mobile meals, transportation services in the area. It provides total care in the place the patient resides. The information network system is quite important in the patient-centered home-based care, which requires the coordinated efforts of various healthcare professionals and social care providers. This system provides a common infrastructure for information sharing among the existing data systems. In Kashiwa, like in most cities in Japan, hospitals, clinics, visiting nurse stations, and the nursing homes use the data system made by different vendors. They could not share the data because data were not compatible among the different systems. So this system allows data sharing among different data systems being used by healthcare and long-term care service providers in Kashiwa. We published a guidebook for promoting the Kashiwa model of integrated community care system. Okay. I just go very quickly the remaining part. The transportation is a big issue for older persons to stay safe and active. Because people age 75 and older are rapidly increasing, many people feel difficulty driving their cars. So in collaboration with several companies such as Toyota and Nissan, we are working on alternative means of transportation in the community. We maximally utilize existing ICT to reach out for people to stay healthy, safe, and connected. We also pursue technological innovations and test new technology in the community. This kind of social experiment requires not only the collaboration of researchers in different disciplines, but also full collaboration with local governments, healthcare institutions, NPOs, business communities, and the residents. Action research is a promising research method in gerontology, but as I mentioned, still in the formative stage. We need to work on further development action research as a scientific research method. 2 years ago, we published an introductory book of action research in aging society in Japanese. I hope action research gets citizenship in gerontological research and contributes to solutions for formidable challenges in the rapidly aging society. Population aging is a global phenomenon. By taking up enormous challenge and exploring new opportunities, actually there are a lot of new opportunities in aging society, and building sustainable society together is our global goal. Well, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Akiyama, for your really comprehensive and exciting presentation. I think your presentation really highlights the importance of active aging and capitalizing on the active aging, and also to facilitate that, the need to design and develop more comprehensive social and community ecosystem for aged societies. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, now I would like to ask Professor Margarita Estevez-Abe and Professor Michelle Silver to give us your thoughts, comments, discussions on Professor Akiyama's presentations and aging society in Japan and Canada, and or in comparison with North America and Europe. So I open the floor to two of you.
Okay. I don't know. So Michelle, do you want to go first, or just what do you want me to do, Ito?
I'm happy to jump in, and I'll try to keep it brief, and maybe we can jump back and forth. Thank you. I want to say thank you to Dr. Akiyama for this very thoughtful presentation, and for a body of inspiring work. I think as the trends towards living longer has taken hold in North America, we are very much looking to Japan for lessons and models and inspiration. I'll focus a little bit on Canada, and I think we can cover the northern part of North America together here. Though it's much smaller than Japan, we really do have quite similar trends. We're just a bit behind in terms of the dependency ratio and the fertility rate. And as is the case, I think in many regions of the world, we're living longer. And so that means that the implications of aging and of retirement have changed, right? So we're starting to question, what does it mean to be old? How old is old? And retirement, I could go on for a long time about this, but I do want to suggest that we've come to this point where it's kind of confusing even what the word retirement means, right? For some people in North America, it's pure bliss, right? They can't wait to retire. For others, retirement is associated with death. And for some people, it means not working at all. And for other people, it's a lifestyle that involves work. So it's very contradictory times that we live in, and the implications of aging societies reach into so many different realms of life. As I think this presentation, Dr. Akiyama, that you presented, it really it spans. We could have gone on and on. I mean, there's so many different aspects from the health sciences across all of the social sciences. The issues of aging raise ethical, moral questions. What does it mean to live a good life? And they're deeply personal questions that have very important social implications. And I think that I just want to kind of wrap up by saying that the pandemic here has really raised a whole new set of concerns. And I think it's fair to bring that up now. And though we do have sort of, different cultural attitudes towards aging, towards retirement here, I think in North America, as the Consul General pointed out, we don't have age-related rules in as many realms of the workforce here in North America. There's very few types of jobs where there's an age associated with retirement. Nonetheless, there is a good deal of ageism that exists in North America. And despite the really important fact that indeed mature adults are very diverse and heterogeneous, as was pointed out. And I think that that this pandemic, I'm a bit afraid, has raised some intergenerational tensions that I think are going to create challenges for us. I want to raise that as something that I think is worth bringing up and discussing. And I think that indeed there have been barriers to overcome when it comes to re-entering the workforce at later stages in life throughout North America. And I think I think the last point I'll make is that I recently reread Dr. Akiyama, your 2011 publication in the Gerontologist about Japan super aging society preparing for the future, where you talked about Japan's experience with the 2011 earthquake and how it provided lessons for other countries. And I think that, one point that you wrote was that earthquake served as a reminder of Japan's traditional societal strengths. And you pointed out that older adults' wisdom saved numerous lives. And in contrast, I find this pandemic has really restricted older adults. Here in Canada, we've been told stay at home, and we've made great public health efforts to isolate
Mhm.
everyone, and in particular our mature adults. And you know, there's some walking is okay, but it's really, we've been quite restricted, as many parts of the world have experienced similar situations. You know, the silver lining really has only been the internet, allowing us to connect across different geographic locations if we're savvy enough to connect. But I worry that there's also some resentment that has grown, and that, you know, businesses and younger workers are going to face the implications of this for some time. And so I think we're in a point where we need to rethink these ways of aging in place, and later life transitions in ways that have never been addressed before. And we need to really rethink promoting social interactions in light of these restrictions. And so I just want to conclude by saying, or just wrap up, last sentence is to say that Dr. Akiyama, I think your action research really offers some great examples for these unique challenges that we are facing now, as we have to rethink and rebuild every aspect of our lives across the generation. So again, I'm gonna pause and pass it to you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much to you know, Ito for inviting me to just speak at this very sort of fascinating webinar. And thank you so much, Akiyama Sensei, for your, you know, presentation, and, you know, your social experimentation. Has just really been sort of fascinating. And particularly towards the end, you were just talking about Japanese community-based sort of healthcare. And I think this just really offers a very important model. So this is just one of the areas where Japan has really evolved. And in fact, I think despite the extremely rapid pace of demographic aging in Japan, because when we talk about demographic aging, we have to talk about speed.
Mhm.
And so comparatively speaking, aging process in Europe has taken place over a much longer duration of time, whereas Japan experienced what France and Sweden went through over a course of 100 years in about 30 years. And now other East Asian countries are following Japan, even in a more accelerated way.
Right.
So I want to highlight how daunting the whole task of adjusting to the demographic aging has been in Japan to a much greater extent than, say, countries like sort of France and Germany and Sweden or sort of Britain. So I think that just sort of taking that into consideration, I think Japan has done a very good job, especially in the area of health and long-term care. Yes, the costs are expanding because the number of elderly is really expanding. But I think compared to other countries, Japan has done a very good job of kind of containing the speed of growth, you know, the rise in the cost of healthcare and long-term care. So in some areas, Japan have done a good job, and I think other countries could just learn from Japan. But then I just want to sort of talk about sort of two things. Just one is related to what Professor Akiyama sort of presented. And the second point is just something that I want to just throw out there for our discussion. And I also just have one question that I want to ask Professor Akiyama. So the first is this issue of employability of the elderly and the need to make elderly work. And I think it was very nice that Akiyama Sensei showed that working actually is good for older citizens, that would actually keep them live well, because they just remain active. And here too, Japan, comparatively speaking, Japan is quite interesting. So Japan, among the OECD countries, Japan is where a very high percentage of people above the age of 65 work. Japan's only second to Korea. So this sounds good, but this is also a reflection of the fact that some people just don't have enough pension to comfortably retire. So as the aging process is going up, the percentage of elderly who are poor is sort of rising. So there's this sort of tension about pension reform and sort of pushing people to work. And so yes, that there is this active aging, the Japanese people just live long, and yes, obviously sort of people have to work for a longer time, but just any foreigner who just go to Japan would be astonished to see, say, in train stations or in some buildings, you know, the janitorial cleaning staff are old people. You pass by a construction site and security guards who are just working under the hot sun in August or in freezing conditions in February. So these are old sort of, you know, people. So when you just see the reality of some of the old people working in Japan, it's kind of hard to just think of it, just look at it positively as sort of active aging. So what can we do? Like, so employability, it just sounds nice, but I mean, how would that just change the reality in Japan? So in your experiments, I think you offered a very nice working environment to so older sort of citizens. So in your sort of experiment, I think I believe that just everyone really enjoyed working in the conditions that you provided. But when we just look at the Japanese reality, that's just not the reality for many people. So this sort of employability, this how can we just provide better working environment for the growing number of older citizens? And at the same time, one thing that I find very interesting in Japan is, well, ageism does exist everywhere. Europe, just, you know, everyone has to retire. So there is a very strict retirement age in European countries, maybe outside of Britain. But in Japan, now there is this term, yakushoku teinen. So people, in exchange for being able to stay in their company until the age of 65, when people hit the age of 50, so that they can stay in the same firm until the age of 65, around the time they hit 55, they have to take a huge pay cut. So this is interesting that just that the society is telling people to work until they turn 70, and the society encourages active aging, but people who work for big companies, by the time they reach their mid-50s, they're made to feel like they're not wanted anymore. So it's, you know, so I think, so this is where some things Japan have done well, but there's some things Japan just doesn't seem to be doing well. And in this sense, North American countries might be doing much better, because no one feels old when they're in their early 50s in North America. And also, so this just leads me to just sort of think about the vibrancy of society, creativeness and innovation, which we need to survive, because aging societies have to be productive, and we need people who can innovate and create new ways of, new technologies, or just new ways of new ideas for the society. So in Japan, when many people are made to feel like they're already old in their 50s and are kind of pushed aside from the mainstream within their companies, what's going to happen to creativity of the society? Because all societies are going to have a very difficult time innovating, because innovation is just something that tends to come from younger people. So Japan already has this demographic hurdle, but the Japanese employment system seems to be discouraging people to be sort of innovative. In the US or in Canada, these countries have just done a very good job of attracting young, innovative foreigners. And this is, again, an area that Japan probably just lags behind. And I don't think that immigration is panacea for everything. That, it's just immigration can also just bring problems. It could be a socially and politically costly process. But, so yes, I admit that Japan has done just wonderful things in healthcare and long-term care. But in terms of creating an innovative sort of creative society where people can really contribute, maybe there's just still a lot more to go. And so I just wanted to end my sort of comment with this, and probably the audience might just have sort of questions, and I would be interested in hearing what Professor Akiyama.
Okay.
Professor Akiyama, would you like to answer these questions? I think both Michelle and Margarita have raised some really, really interesting questions. I'm just summarizing some of the issues that they raised. For example, Michelle has talked about sort of as we think about aging society or age society, the need to rethink about idea of aging and the intergenerational tensions and collaborations, if that's possible, and how this current pandemic might have sort of opened opportunities and sort of ideas for rethinking that aging issue. I think Margarita's point about Margarita's point about the fact that maybe we need to rethink, although Japan has done a good job, but we need to rethink about the actually work and employment system and employment structures, how that might create barriers or opportunities for the aging society. And finally, what about the immigration as a potential option for sort of aging society as one of the tools for addressing aging society in Japan? Would you like to?
Yes.
It's a lot of questions, but and we have only a few minutes left, but before we open for Q&A from the floor.
Okay. Well, I think both Michelle and Margarita, please call me Hiroko, okay, and pointed out very kind of important, issues. Certainly, population is aging. That is, for a long time, okay. And then now, we have COVID-19 and this pandemic, and I think this is in a sense, it's a very interesting and exciting time. See, I think, as the Margarita mentioned, when I came back to Japan, 1997, I was amazed. About yakushoku teinen, and so people in the middle of 50 or 60. I think that is the peak of their career. Okay, and after 60, the kind of income just dropped. At half, or in the worst case, 30% of the original. The amount, and I think that is a very strange system. I thought, and I did not understand. But see, I think that is, that system, I think, because there are a lot of younger people, and we have to give job to younger people, so we have to limit the opportunity for older people. Probably that's I think the way the employment system was kind of built a long time ago. Probably 50 years ago. But now everyone, all young and old feel we need, a labor force. We need more people to work, okay, young or old. So I think, I think the government and also the at every level of, the workplaces, I think, changing that system. And as you might see, the media report, now, people age 60 or 68 are returning to, the important the position in the company. Okay, so they are actually, the companies started changing the system because, they can't really recruit young people, who are capable to do this particular job. So I think, now it's more approaching to ageless society. The company, whoever who can do this job best should do this job. So the changing, and so that is, I think, basically because of the shortage of, the labor force, for the young people. I think, we are forced to change the employment system. That is a trend. And then this COVID-19 actually affected the way of working, both young and old. Okay, and we stay home and work. Using a lot of the digital device, okay, online. And then for many older people, working meant, in particular in urban area, going to the work in Tokyo, you take the rush hour, the train, and then work, go to the work office in Tokyo, and then work and come back, late at night, something. But now the concept of working changed. Okay, actually, so work style is it's becoming much more flexible. Okay, and so all the people start thinking about, well, I think, I can maintain working in a similar way. So I don't want to, go to the office every day, taking the train, but I think I can do that. So, both young and old, started, the thinking, the what they can do or not, changed. So, so probably the way of the working might change. The kind of the involvement of all the people in labor force as well. So I'm very interested to see that this, how things go. Okay, and so at now, I think, I don't see much tension. Intergenerational tension between, I think, younger people feel, the older people, are taking my job away. We really need, it's a shortage of, the labor force. That's, changed the, intergenerational tension issue a lot. And let me see.
Professor Akiyama,
yes.
I wonder if I could now, because as you answer this, some of the questions are also raised by people from listening to this webinar. So
Yes.
could I kind of merge some of the questions? Because I think the last question that I summarized from Margarita was the immigration issue of immigration. And in fact, there is also another a person from the audience writing in and asking you if you could speak about sort of why Japan is not choosing immigration as a way to help carry aging society. So this kind of coincides with Margarita's point.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a long Japanese history, I think, I mean, also we are kind of island, I mean, country. That is another reason probably. I mean, Japan, I mean, close, I mean, not only, I mean, in the labor force, labor market, I think, I mean, in many sense, I think. But I think, I mean, the government, I mean, policy, and also the company, I mean, they started really opening up the labor market. I mean, and I think now, I mean, I think some company use English as official language in the company, and so I mean, changing, but the still. See, I think, I mean, the dependency ratio issue is very common for almost many kind of industrial country. And I mean, most, I mean, the North American and the European company solve this issue by kind of, I mean, you know, getting, I mean, the young, I mean, workers, I mean, from foreign countries. But I mean, Japan has not taken that, I mean, the solution, and rather than we more focus on, I mean, kind of putting, I mean, more women, I think, because we are very, I mean, behind in the women's participation of labor force. And so we are, I mean, usually changing the system to, for the younger, I mean, both younger men and women, I mean, enter labor force. And also we are focusing on more older people who are healthy and better educated than the previous generation. I think they, I mean, kind of, I mean, get more involvement in the labor. And so I think, I mean, the Japan is started opening up, I mean, the labor market to other countries, but still more focused on how women and, I mean, seniors, they want to, I mean, to join the workforce. Yes.
Thank you. I wondered now if I could open up the discussion to all three experts by raising some of the questions that have come in. There are actually quite a lot of them. And we have about just a little bit more than 10 minutes left. So I'm trying to gather questions in different groups. There are some questions regarding the sort of the care, long-term care and care of the elderly people. For example, Susanna Boskovic at the Serbian Seniors Group has written to ask how much are the robots involved in the care of the elderly in the long-term care facilities and in the community settings. At this point, she says, I am not interested in Paro or the like robots for social engagement, but the use of the robots in more physical contact, which will prevent human from being exposed to sort of trying manual routines, especially some engagement of robots in such thing as lifting and changing diapers. Another person, Carrie Mignon, actually would like to ask a question about, in terms of the facilities, what do you see in terms of addressing inefficient long-term care facilities and homes? How do you think that Canada's funding model for infrastructure stack up in other jurisdictions? So that's one group of questions about the long-term care itself. Another group, set of questions relates to, again, the work. This one from Taisei Inoue, asking, do you think that the Japanese work culture influenced the seniors' willingness to work, or even after retirement age? Or I'll put it another way, would this change Japanese culture? Do you see changes in Japanese working culture in the future? Finally, there's a question from Erika Matsui, who asks about how could the pension or Nenkin system possibly change with the implementation of these senior compatible societies and second life. This is open to everybody. So if any one of you, Margarita, Hiroko, Michelle, if you would like to answer, please answer.
Okay, let me, mention a few words about robots in a caregiving setting. Okay, and I think it's in like most, countries. We have, it's a really serious, problem of, the shortage of care workers for long-term care, and so the kind of solving with the technology, particularly robots. Sensors and the robots. It's really the way we are going, and so it's the robots. But in my view, I think the from the point of the older person, who are staying in the long-term care facilities, I think that the current technology or robot is not enough. To accept. Okay, it's not very comfortable. Okay, and so I think it requires a little more kind of elaborations of the robots, but I think the major issues in Japan and also in other European countries and in North America probably, I think staff members are not willing to accept robots. Okay, they are very kind of resistant, okay, to robots, and I think that is probably more serious issues. We might face in the future, and so I think both technological advancement and so more user-friendly robots we need to what we need, and also that another way is user side, on not only the residents of the facilities, but also staff members. They are not willing. They have some resistance. Do you see a similar experience in North America? Margarita, do you know anything about that?
No, well, I'm not aware of. I've sort of seen the use of sort of robots in sort of Japan and Germany, but for instance, in Germany, they just use robots for disinfecting sort of places, so they use sort of robots in ways to save time of the nurses and care workers. My understanding of the Japanese case is that the kind of the robots, it's not just robots that we might see in sort of cartoons, but they use sort of robots that kind of robots that the caregivers can wear to protect their back, so this robot assists them when they're sort of lifting sort of old, their patients, so that they wouldn't hurt their back, because just many care workers risk hurting their back. So there's some sort of robots. Also, there's some robots. Well, so they're beds, they're not robots, but these are sort of smart beds that help caregiver lift people, put them on chairs, put them sort of back on bed. So I think sort of Japan is investing in sort of many of these robots, but the difficulty here, the way I see it is the Japanese long-term care facilities, they tend to be small. So each one of them, so they're typically run by non-profit organizations, and they don't really have money to purchase expensive equipment. Obviously, the government is helping them, but this is, this is different. So, so robots, especially, during the initial stages, they can be very expensive. So again, I don't really see how the daily sort of routines in long-term sort of care facilities can be sort of dramatically changed. Maybe AI, I have sort of seen that some long-term sort of care facilities in Japan, must be experimental cases with subsidies from the government, that they use sort of AI, so they use sort of AI to monitor sort of patients at night, so that the care facility doesn't require as many nighttime shift workers. But this is, I think this is still kind of developing. I think this is an area, as Akiyama said, that Japan still doesn't have a lesson to teach.
Right.
It might,
right.
but
yeah. But I think, because now I run, the living lab, so I have a lot of opportunity to talk with, older people. I myself is older person, but with the various level, okay, very active old seniors, and also 90s or 100 years. It's kind of frail, okay. And I think, just listening to what they say is, I think those users, wants, actually, they're kind of thinking about living with a robot. Okay, that is, and so it's social robots, okay, and also the more assisting, more physical part. For example, going to the bathroom, or taking a bath. It's, I think, if the robot can help, I think they want to live at their home, okay, not going to the nursing facilities. Okay, so user side, really, I actually looking forward. When they get old at 90 or 95, I think we are going to have the robots, the partner, living together and talking, and also taking, some providing assistance, physical assistance as well. So that's one of the way to go. I think we are really, yes, I think technological solution is important. Yeah.
Michelle, would you like to make?
I was just gonna add, I think there's also the social element, the isolation aspect, that the robots can provide comfort, right? I've seen the models in Japan of the robots that are, they're really cute and they're furry and they're not functional, but they're serving a purpose that I think we're going to need to address after all this isolation. And we may be looking at models of robots for all sorts of different things.
Yeah, so the social robot with AI. So the robots learns, what I like, or my past, the history, and so that's really, I think, one of the the solution, of the isolation and loneliness, and also how to live comfortably even if you get some frail, yeah.
Oh, Itu, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. And as I was listening to you discuss and answer this question, more questions were coming in. On the one hand, on the other, I was keeping my eyes on the time, and I'm afraid we have reached to the end of our webinar today. There's a lot more to discuss. It's very, very obvious from the questions that are arriving, but I'm afraid we'll have have to stop here this time. I hope we could continue this conversation in future. At this point, I would like to thank all three of you, Professor Akiyama, Professor Estevez-Abe, and Professor Silva, for your very, very stimulating presentation and discussions. I think we learned a lot from this. And so I would like to thank you again for being here. And I would like to also thank all the participants who have stayed and listened and sent us questions for your participation and engagement with us in this webinar. With this, I would like to call this webinar adjourned. Thank you very much. And good night, good morning, good afternoon. Bye.